Hi guys, if you're watching this, that means I'm somewhere in between Texas and Louisiana right now. Hopefully closer to Louisiana given my time constraints, but who knows? Traffic happens, life happens. So who knows where I am? Not me. Regardless, today I'm going to talk about assistive tech for students with intellectual disabilities. There's a lot of technology and a lot of information out there. So I kind of boiled it down to the one that I thought was the most interesting and the most useful for each level of assistive tech. I'm kind of kicking myself right now though because there's a low tech tool that I think is pretty neat that I've seen in real life going along my practice that I wish I talked about, but I just didn't even think about it until after the presentation was all made. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit, but it's not in my presentation technically. So my low tech was text to speech. I know most of you guys are in the ed tech class, and so you just heard me talk a lot about speech to text in another screencast. But I chose text to speech for this one because I think it's more applicable and more useful for students with intellectual disabilities. Um, we all know what it does. It reads whatever is on a computer out loud so the student doesn't have to do it themselves. And I think that's great because reading can be a real barrier to certain lessons. And if that's not the main purpose of the lesson, then it doesn't seem useful to me to try to force them to comprehend or to decipher what's on the screen, what they need to read in order to be able to complete the lesson. Like if that's just one more roadblock, then it doesn't seem purpose or it doesn't seem meaningful to me to have them try to struggle through that. Other if that's the case. It can be kind of tricky if the student doesn't have that verbal comprehension skill that they would need in order to listen and then be able to understand what's going on, or the auditory processing. But given that they do, and that the issue is just with being able to look at a screen, being able to focus on the text, being able to read it all, then this would really help. There are some programs out there that you can buy for it, but it's not really necessary because there are so many free programs. It also comes pre-installed on some laptops or computers sometimes anyway, so you don't even need third-party software in order to do it. It kind of just depends on the functionality of your computer, but if your computer doesn't have it, it's again not a big deal because there's so many different programs that will do it for free. They're all pretty much the same. We kind of just have to weed through them and see which one works best for you and for your student. Oh, and then the other low tech thing that I wanted to talk about was these bar cage sort of things that lay on top of an iPad almost as a screen protector, but it makes the iPad function as one of the talker boards that we've looked into before. The bars are there to match with an app that has those same buttons on it, like a talker tablet does. But the bars serve the purpose of kind of directing the student's finger to where it needs to go in order to press the correct button so their fingers aren't accidentally touching two buttons at once. The bars lay to divide up the buttons so the finger has some restraints as to where it can go, making it easier for students with mobility or fine motor skill issues to be able to touch the buttons. So then the medium tech that I want to talk about was the actual talker itself. I know a lot of us have seen this, but there's many different models of it, which is really kind of neat. They can be as simple as just a yes or no sort of reply, or they can have layers upon layers of different outputs that can be programmed in. I know we've seen more of the latter, so that I was really interested in seeing that there was ones that were a lot more simple and just yes, no. That's why I said the cost is about $1,000 or less, because the most expensive models that I was seeing they run for about $1,000. But they can get simpler and they can get less wordy, kind of depending on what the student needs. The high-tech one I found was actually really interesting. I like this a lot. It's this really big monitor. It's probably about this big. The screen is about that big. If you were to see a student in average height third, fourth grader, they would probably be standing about here in comparison to the screen, or like here in comparison to the one that was standing up. Regardless, it's a really big screen, and then so it helps students that have those fine motor and dexterity issues touch the buttons because there's so much space for them to aim for. It's not just on a small laptop or a small iPad where you have to be pretty precise in order to get what you want. This makes it so much bigger for them and so much more accessible. It also has this resting ignoring technology. I think they call it something different, but what it means is that a student can like lean on the tech, they can put their elbow on it, they can put their arm on it, they can flail or twitch on it, and it would only pick up, it ignores all of those sort of thing and only picks up the touches that are deliberate. It can tell somehow, I don't really know, but I think it's really neat that they thought to include that because it's such a big screen, so kids are really inclined to lean on it, and it really helps with being able to balance yourself if you have to catch yourself on it or anything that because of your mobility. It's really versatile as well. As you can see, it retracts down to here, so if a student is lower to the ground, then they have this gets closer to them. If they can stand, if they're higher up, then it pushes up so to kind of meet them where they're at. And it also has this base right here that is meant for wheelchairs or other mobility devices being able to get in there kind of easy, so you're not sitting super far away from the screen because of your wheelchair or walker or whatever the student may have. The laptop hooks up right here, and then the screen projects whatever is on the laptop screen, but just makes any program like touch accessible. It's really, really nice, but it's really expensive. But regardless, I would still love to see it in some schools. It seems like a really useful and interesting piece of technology. I only found it through research. I'd never heard of it. I've never seen it in person, but it looks really cool, and I think it would help a lot of students. So hopefully we will see it maybe more schools in the future, or whenever, wherever I go to teach, be able to see it in that situation. Thanks everyone. See you next Friday.